Hey, record loving friends, it's Brian from TokyoRecordStyle coming to you today with another edition of Whack-a-Mole. Now, what is Whack-a-Mole? Whack-a-Mole is where we pull records randomly from our collections and we riff on the records. We talk about them, we talk about the music, we talk about the artists, talk about the albums, talk about the producers and the engineers, people who are involved in it, talk about when and why the album came to us, about why it's meaningful, why it's in our collection, and basically just is a chance to see if we're worth our salt and to challenge our musical appreciation and see what we know about our records. And it's a really interesting way to rediscover records in our collection that we haven't listened to in a long time, and sometimes flail, and sometimes just kind of, challenge ourselves to riff as best we can. So I'm going to call this edition of Whack-a-Mole Whack-a-Whack-a-Mole, or the Whack-a-Mole Fallacy of Sunken Cost edition, because I've actually tried to make this video two times already, and my computer and my camera haven't been playing nice together, and so I've lost two videos. And rather than just start over, I'm gonna actually charge on, and I'm going to try to talk about the five records that I've already pulled, which is kind of antithetical to the whack-a-mole idea, because the whole thing is that you can't really edit, you can't sneak off and look up records on Google or Wikipedia. You have to kind of riff on them. But I'm going to ask you to suspend your disbelief for a moment and trust me that I did honestly pull these records from my collection, and just pretend that I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've got my five records here. And whack-a-mole, we owe a little bit, the name at least, coined by our friend Norman Maslov, who admits that he didn't come up with the idea of pulling random records from your collection and talking about them, but the whack-a-mole name, which has stuck and which I kind of like. Mazzy always has put these forward. He's got to be on his 100th time of doing this. This is my maybe 6th or 7th time of doing it. It's really fun. I encourage you to try it. It's a really, really great way to just challenge yourself and appreciate your records and your music. So without further ado, the first record that I pulled was Tom Waits's Frank's Wild Years, which is, I think, the third record in a three-part trilogy, an operaci romantico in 2 acts. And it starts with Swordfish Trombones, I think, and goes to Rain Dogs, and then ends up on Frank's Wild Years. And I think it was, it came off of the Asylum years. This is on the Island Records, and he kind of abandoned his lounge lizard act, drunken tramp kind of persona, and started to adopt this vaudevillian circus ringmaster kind of character where he's a little bit deranged, and it's very fun and very exciting, and I really love this series. And it was the chapter of Tom Waits that when I came to know him first, and not something that I would have normally liked right off the bat, but there was something about it that really connected with me, and I've loved Tom Waits ever since. This particular series has 3 really great album cover art works, and Swordfish Trombones is a monochrome image with some hand painted accents on it, which I really love. It's kind of black and white and color at the same time. Rain Dogs has that wonderful image of somebody seeming to be Tom, although it's not Tom, sort of nuzzling up against the bosom of some sort of voluptuous woman. And then Frank's Wild Years, which is this really cool composite. It kind of feels like it's coffee toned or sepia, some interesting alternative processes in the darkroom. And it also has this kind of cool multiple exposure composite thing going on with the cityscape here, the accordion, and the martini glass, and Tom Frank's Wild Years. Now, I really love this accordion, because the accordion has the bellows. I love to play accordion. If I don't have all that many chances to play it, but it's a very fun instrument to play. It's right there in front of you, and what do all the buttons do? It's really kind of complicated, but if you play a little bit of piano, you can kind of figure it out, and it's really fun. And I have a very dear friend, Bill Keys, who types poems on the streets of New York City for passersby with his typewriter. He's called the Poem Guy. And a long time ago, he suggested that I bring my large format camera to New York, and we set up in the park somewhere, and we make poems and photos for people, which is kind of in my wheelhouse to do. And he said, bring your accordion camera and let's set up next to each other. And I thought, oh, accordion camera, I love that notion. And I actually started a Tumblr blog forever ago, and it's all of accordions and cameras. And I pulled up a little reel that you can see. It's thousands of images. I collected images for quite a number of years of accordions and cameras, and they alternate every 2 or 3, and Sometimes you don't know if you're looking at an accordion or if you're looking at a camera or you're looking at some kind of thing that looks like an accordion or camera. But yeah, inspired by the bellows of the accordion and of the camera. I really particularly like this one. So go check out Accordion Camera on the internet. And this one has some great tunes on it. Hang On St. Christopher, Straight Up to the Top, Temptation, which I think that this wasn't this. It became an actual uh, opera, a rock opera, a real actual play. I think that played at the Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago near Evanston, maybe by Wrigley Park. My friend Freddie was living in Chicago at the time, and he told me that he used to see Tom Waits driving around in a taxi, if I remember correctly. And I think he also told, I think the live album Big Time, I can't quite figure out the chronology, but uh, they're all connected, I think. And yeah, Temptation. I think there's a great live version of Temptation on the album Big Time. This also has Innocent When You Dream, and Yesterday Is Here, and Frank's theme. And I think this is the one where he's like, I went down to the gasoline station, filled up a canister of gas, and went home and lit the place on fire. Never did like that dog. He talks about this Chihuahua that that he hated, that his lover had. Telephone Call from Issimo, Cold, Cold Ground, great song. And Train Song, which I think was made famous by Rod Stewart and maybe also Bruce Springsteen. I know Springsteen did Downtown Train. No, did Jersey Girl. But I think I think Springsteen may have also done Train Song. Train Song and Downtown Train? Wait, I think I'm conflating two songs. Anyway, Innocent When You Dream. I had the very great privilege to see Tom Waits in concert at the Paramount Theater in Denver, Colorado. It was a dream come true, and I was sitting in the fourth row, and it was so goddamn vivid. It was amazing. And at one point, he had this, during the song, Innocent When You Dream, it's such a sad old feeling. And I keep grabbing my hat because he had this bowler hat on for that song, and it had mirrors, little tiny like mirror ball mirrors all over it. And he's saying, it's such a sad old feeling. The hills are soft and green, but you're innocent when you dream. And he shook his bowler hat as the spotlight shone on it, and it made this totally crazy dream-like effect, and it felt like a dream. Seeing Tom Waits in concert was like a dream, and when he sang Innocent When You Dream, great core memory. So it's a really great pull. Frank's Wild Years. Sorry, I went off on that one a little bit long. Next record I pulled out, couldn't believe I actually grabbed this one, the Moldy Peaches. I think this is their one and only record. I have some live cut CD type stuff and some outtakes, but I think this is their one and only and their debut album. The Moldy Peaches are Adam Green and Kimya Dawson, who both have great big discographies, solo career discographies, and they're fantastic. It was kind of a folk punk band from the anti-folk movement in downtown New York City, kind of really groovy band, and they were part of a bigger scene that included a whole bunch of interesting bands from this era. I'm failing to remember the guy who kind of pioneered this movement, but it was this sort of sweet punk thing that sort of connected itself to the folk movement, like a Bob Dylan, I would think, and the East Village, and playing in like coffee houses and things like this. And I had the good fortune to see the Moldy Peaches play in Boulder, I think at the Fox. Yeah, at the Fox Theater. Maybe it was at the Boulder Theater. Where was it? I remember very vividly. They came to breakfast the next morning, and I served them coffee and eggs, a little diner that I was working at, which was really fun. And then I ended up going out to New York City and seeing them in New York City, and I've gone on to collect heaps of Adam Green records. Adam Green has this kind of Elvis Costello, Jonathan Richmond. I feel like Julian Casablancas has been deeply inspired by Adam Green. Adam Green, Leonard Cohen, he's an amazing songwriter, and he's got this really beautiful baritone voice, and he's Beck, a little bit of Beck in there as well. Oh, my auto aperture is struggling here with the bright white record. And Kimmy Dawson, her music was made famous by a movie, Little Miss Sunshine, I think it was. I think she kind of she got a lot of notoriety from that movie, and I've gone on to collect a bunch of her records, and she's great. They're kind of a bedroom, what do they call it, like a bedroom written album. It's kind of like songs that you wrote in your attic with your friend, and they're just these little sweet odes to the dearest, most endearing things in our lives and people. And it's got tracks like My Name is Jorge Regula, My Name is Jorge Regula, Lucky Number 9, Hooray. It's got Who's Got the Crack, The Ballad of Helen Keller and Rip Van Winkle. It's a great record. On Rough Trade, I think this might be really valuable now, but if you want to bring the Moldy Peaches to your town, they've dissolved 20 years ago, but you can write to the Moldy Peaches 2000 at hotmail.com. And yeah, kind of like local heroes, kind of underground legends. Quite cool. The Moldy Peaches. Very happy to have that one in my collection. I got to meet them a couple of times, and they signed some records for me. Signed some swag and posters and CDs and stuff. I think solo records. I have a couple signed. And then I pulled Neil Young and Crazy Horse. Love this record. I owned it as a teenager. I think I had it maybe on cassette, maybe, or on CD. And I remember, I was all in on Neil Young, and I think I got, went from Buffalo Springfield to Neil Young to like Harvest and Harvest Moon, and I think I thought, oh, Neil Young and Crazy Horse, that should be good. Rust Never Sleeps, and it was not. I remember it distinctly not being what I expected. I didn't realize that there was this incredible heavy rock band behind Neil Young in the later years, and this one, of course, starts with Hey Hey My My. Rock and Roll Will Never Die, Out of the Blue and Into the Black, and Powderfinger, Open Side 2. And it also has that tune, Marlon Brando, Pocahontas and Me, which I think is a reference to Marlon Brando's Academy Award. He sent a young woman, before my time, on stage, a Native American woman, to collect his Oscar. And she gave some kind of... she had some social commentary about the times, and Marlon Brando used his moment to talk about something that he cared about. And I think it came out later that she wasn't actually Native. I don't remember, but I do love this song, Pocahontas, Pocahontas, and Neil just looking supremely cool. He looks really young, and God, I'm embarrassed to say I don't really know who are the members of Crazy Horse, but I know that they've been working together for ages and ages. And this something about this tour, like the cover here, they have the giant Fender amps, and there must have been they look like, the giant microphone on, you see that, like the giant. And then here he's got some oversized harmonica, and looks like it was a fun show and fun production. And there's a funny story about Powderfinger. I remember, I think Fish, who I love so much. There's a story of, they're at like a music festival, maybe like Bonnaroo or something, and or who knows where. But Neil Young ends up backstage during a Fish set and suggests to the Fish guys that they ought to do a song together. And Trey suggests Powderfinger, if I'm not mistaken. And then Neil goes out and plays before them, and he plays the song Powderfinger. And Trey thought, oh, okay, well, I guess we'll chalk that up as a loss. I'm confused on why he played the song that we had planned to play together and that we practiced momentarily backstage. But okay, fine, we'll roll with it. And then Neil Young comes off stage, and Fish comes out later. And then suddenly Trey starts to hear his guitar in his monitors, and he's playing his guitar, but he can hear somebody else also playing his guitar, and he turns around, and Neil has picked up his backup guitar and is on stage coming to jam with Fish. I forgot what tune they played, but they've been on stage together, so that's kind of a cool one. And this crazy kind of 80s 70s computer font juxtaposed on this handwritten script. I don't know it's interesting because these guys are kind of obsessed. This was not the first time I saw this font on kind of an old-timey record. That I think it's Deja Vu. That this font is uncharacteristically on that record, which has the old-timey photo. They're wearing this sort of Civil War era, black and white, costume. It looks like one of those sort of photos that you get made at the amusement park of the Old West. And yet they have this, digital, kind of 80s-ish font on it, which is kind of just weird. Anyway, yeah, Rust Never Sleeps. Okay, next up is, I should have looked this up. Treasure Isle compilation Showtime. Treasure Isle is a Jamaican, very famous Jamaican label that I should know more about. They famously had on their label the Paragons, the Melodians, Alton Ellis, and a whole bunch of other, Phyllis Dillon. Interesting, they have Alton Ellis on here twice. And the Flames, okay. U-Roy, the Jamaicans, and I think I got this I'm 99% sure I got this at Cocoa Isle Music Market, and I grew up with reggae music, but I didn't really know the roots of Jamaican music and the history, and I asked the owner there to give me kind of a little bit of a crash course in the history of Jamaican music. I knew it, but I just kind of wanted to hear what he had to say, and he told me about, you got to know, Treasure Isle. I think the guy's name, I want to say Bucky, is the sort of the leader of the label, and he's got a belt with a bunch of bullets and a side piece here. He's got a pistol on his hip, and he looks like he's holding a wad of cash, and he's got some jewelry on, and I think his name is Bucky, but I could be mistaken. And Duke, that's it. Maybe produced by Arthur Duke Reed, not Bucky, Duke. I think this is Arthur Duke Reed, the guy who ran the label. And yeah, so I got schooled about, Studio One and Tough Gong and Beverly's. And Beverly's is another interesting label that it was led by Leslie Chong, I think his name is. He's a Chinese producer living in Jamaica. And I had grew up with a Chinese, very dear Chinese friend, shout out Christian, who was the most deep, Jamaican music reggae head that I knew. And I was always kind of like, he was from New York, and it made sense, but it kind of didn't make sense. And when I found out that reggae music had this very important Chinese figure from who led the Beverly label, dots started to get connected, which was kind of interesting to me. But yeah, Tough Gong, Studio One, Treasure Isle, probably heaps of more that I'm spacing, but anything on the Treasure Isle label is great. I mean, this is kind of, I want to say, like a Rocksteady era. Music was coming over from New Orleans, jazz and R&B, and that infiltrated the Jamaican airwaves. And from ska, from early ska, we get to Rocksteady. And you can see they look really cool here in the clubs. It's got quite a 50s vibe and kind of like a Motown thing. And a group sounds. Yeah, so yeah, great tunes on here. Come On Little Girl by the Melodians, super fun song. Alibaba by John Holt. Where You the Ball. Let's see what else is on here. Go Lizzie Go, another famous track. Lizzie and Dennis Al Capone. Happy Go Lucky Girl, the Paragons. Rocksteady, Phyllis Dillon. Baba Boom, the Jamaicans. Okay, so this is probably from. This is like a recent kind of thing, probably 2000s ish, and then I have been on this big Granddaddy kick, and I had a whole bunch of Granddaddy records on the piano here, and I was trying to reach for something that was behind so that I wouldn't necessarily grab a Granddaddy record or maybe something kind of recent, but I ended up pulling their sort of seminal masterpiece, and I'm glad because it's fun to talk about, and that is Granddaddy's Sophtware Slump, their second record, a concept record about a robot that a gang of friends make and are totally interested and infatuated by, and it's the focus of all their attention for a few years, and then slowly Jed, the humanoid robot, they start to sort of lose their interest in him, and he sort of becomes a bit depressed and about his creators taking less and less interest in him, and he finally finds his way to the liquor cabinet, and little by little he sort of drinks himself to death, and it's this sad story of technology sort of failing there in the end, and the boys realize that they've neglected their robot, and it's a tragic story of technology gone awry, and it's a really great record. Granddaddy is a touring band that performs the songs of Jason Lytle. I have loved Granddaddy since the moment that I heard these songs, and I think probably this was the first album that I heard, and I had to go backwards to find the previous album and the following albums. But I mean, maybe this had I can't really remember the chronology, but I'm all 1,000% in on Granddaddy. I love everything that they put out, and there are only about like 10 canonical albums or less, but there's like heaps of EPs and heaps of singles. And I was in a record store not all that long ago in the neighborhood of Ikebukuro with my homie Bryce, shout out Bryce, and I walked in and they were playing Granddaddy on the house system, and I was like, oh this is one of my favorite records. And is this for sale? Because original presses of this are prohibitively expensive, and I went over to go see if it just might be affordable, and it turned out it was a CD they were playing, and I was like, oh, okay. And but I got to talking to the owner of this branch of Coconuts. I have a Coconuts by me that I've been to hundreds of times, but I'd never been to the Ikebukuro one, so it was a fun chance to connect with the record store owner and tell him how much I love this album, and as I go shopping around, I start hearing more really cool music coming on the house system, but I didn't recognize it. But it sounded very Granddaddy-ish. And I said, what is this? And he said, this is Granddaddy. I said, what album? And he's like, it's Sophtware Slump. I was like, no, it is not, because I know this album. And I know the very last song on this album, Dial of You into So You Aim Towards the Sky. But this is definitely not either of those songs. And he said, oh, no, and I said, this is a Japanese bonus track. So I went and found out, sure enough, Granddaddy Sophtware Slump has 2 extra songs at the end of it that I may have had on other EPs, but I just never had heard them in the context of this record, and it was so supremely cool. I was like, oh, these were the records that didn't make it onto the album. And so I went out and found a Japanese version of this album, which has the bonus tracks on it. So this has very recently, because somebody called me and said, hey, you know that Granddaddy's been repressed. You can go get it right now on Amazon or whatever. And I was like, because every time it gets released or re-released, it hasn't had that many represses, but every time it sells out immediately. But the fact that I think everybody who really loves this record has one now, you can actually find it. And it just had a 25-year anniversary. It also had like the Sophtware Slump on a wooden piano, which I also have up here. It's a sort of demo version of this. If you've never heard Granddaddy, consider yourself lucky because there's a world of musical discovery ahead of you. I really encourage you to go check this out. It's very, I'm kind of dumbfounded how it doesn't seem to be more out there, although my love for this band may be kind of singular. I've just had nobody to kind of share my musical appreciation with. And maybe he's Granddaddy and Jason Lytle are out there and everybody knows them. But for some reason, I don't hear anybody talking about them. And so I've only ever really loved and appreciated Granddaddy by myself. So if there's Granddaddy homies out there, reach out to me and invite me into your world because I'm a huge fan. I'm all in, and I have all of the Granddaddy records, and they're all really cool. And even the most recent record, Blue Wave, supremely cool. So, did we do it in the end? I really hope so. That's Whack-a-Mole. I admit maybe they got a little bit more polished, the versions that I did of this as I recorded them, but I didn't kind of want to give up on it, and it's an unconventional Whack-a-Mole, considering that it didn't come together for a couple of times that I tried to do it, but that is what it is. We pull records from our collection and we riff on them, and I'm glad I didn't give up on it. Frank's Wild Years, Moldy Peaches, Rust Never Sleeps, Treasure Isle compilation, and Granddaddy's Sophtware Slump. Okay, thanks for indulging me in another video. Thanks, Mazzy, for putting this notion out there. I don't see other people doing Whack-a-Mole too much, but I encourage you to give it a try. It's pretty fun. I intend to do more of them. I think probably you can go back and see some of my older Whack-a-Moles, and I encourage you to go check out Mazzy's. He's got heaps of them. Okay. Fingers crossed the computer and stuff is working this time. And thanks again, and smash the like button, subscribe if you're not already, and thanks for letting me go off again and try to put a little bow on this Whack-a-Mole, this edition of Whack-a-Mole. All right, until next time, see you out there at the record store. Bye.